The wind howled through the vast, silent expanse of the desert night. High above, the stars twinkled in a dazzling display, seeming to whisper secrets of the universe to those who would listen. At the farthest edge of the desert, in a small, humble cabin perched on a rocky hill, lived an old man known to some as the Stargazer. His real name had long been forgotten, as the people in the nearby village had long since stopped visiting him, thinking him to be eccentric or mad. Each night, the Stargazer would stand on his porch, gazing through his telescope at the heavens. He studied the stars, planets, and constellations, charting their movements as if they held the key to an ancient mystery. He was a man who lived for the skies, and the night sky was his only companion. One evening, as the Stargazer sat in his chair, the faint sound of scratching reached his ears, almost like the delicate scraping of claws against wood. At first, he thought it was the wind. The desert could play tricks on the ears sometimes, making it sound as though the very earth was whispering to him. But then the sound grew louder, persistent and frantic, as if it were begging for attention. The Stargazer frowned, pushing aside his chair with a creak of old wood. He shuffled to the door and, with a slow motion, opened it. Standing on the doorstep was a dog. It was a large dog, a breed the Stargazer had never seen before, with thick, matted fur that was stained with dirt and blood. Its eyes were wide and fearful, but there was something else in them too, a glimmer of intelligence, of urgency, as if it had traveled far and suffered much. The animal's chest heaved, its breath shallow and ragged. The Stargazer felt a strange chill run down his spine. He had seen many things in his life, many strange events that made the universe seem just a little bit less mysterious. But this was different. The dog whimpered, its head lowered slightly, as if it was trying to avoid the Stargazer's gaze. But it was clear the animal was in pain. Its right leg was badly injured, the fur around it matted with dark, sticky blood. It was clear the dog had been running for quite some time, and it had reached the Stargazer's home only by sheer willpower. He crouched down slowly, not wanting to frighten the creature. "What happened to you?" he muttered, though he knew the dog couldn't answer him in words. The Stargazer reached out cautiously, his fingers brushing the dog's fur. The dog didn't flinch. Instead, it let out a low whine and limped a few steps forward, pressing its head against his leg as if seeking comfort. The Stargazer's heart tightened. There was something deeply unsettling about the dog's appearance, something more than just the injuries. It was as though the animal was not entirely of this world. As the Stargazer knelt beside it, he noticed something strange. Above the dog's wounded leg, faint symbols were etched into its fur, glowing softly in the moonlight. The marks seemed ancient, as though they had been burned into its skin by some force far beyond anything he could understand. The Stargazer's breath caught in his throat. "What are you?" he whispered, knowing there would be no answer. Suddenly, the dog staggered and collapsed at his feet, its body shaking with exhaustion. The Stargazer quickly scrambled to lift the dog, his old bones protesting as he carried it inside, cradling its injured body carefully. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of old parchment and dried herbs. The Stargazer set the dog gently on a blanket near the fire, then moved quickly to gather the supplies he had used countless times before on his stargazing excursions: bandages, ointments, and herbs that might ease the dog's pain. As he worked, the dog stirred, lifting its head to look at him with those strange, intelligent eyes. It seemed to study him, as though it were trying to tell him something. And then, without warning, the dog's body jerked, and the Stargazer felt the air in the room grow thick with energy. The fire in the hearth flickered, and the symbols on the dog's body flared to life, glowing brighter than ever before. A deep hum filled the cabin, resonating in the Stargazer's bones. He could feel it, a pulse, a rhythm, as though the very stars themselves were reaching out through the dog. The Stargazer gasped, suddenly realizing something he had never considered before. The dog was not merely a creature of flesh and blood. It was something else entirely, something from beyond the stars. A messenger, perhaps, or even a harbinger. The Stargazer had heard legends, whispers about creatures from the stars that could take earthly forms. Some said they were guides, others said they were protectors. But now, standing in front of him, the Stargazer was witnessing one of these beings in the flesh. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and the dog's eyes locked with his. It was as though they were communicating, not with words, but with something far deeper. The stargazer could feel his mind stretching, his understanding of the universe expanding in ways he had never imagined. Then, the dog let out a soft, mournful whine and collapsed back onto the blanket, its body still and lifeless. The symbols on its fur dimmed, and the hum in the air slowly faded, leaving behind an eerie silence. The stargazer stood there for a moment, uncertain of what he had just experienced. The dog was gone. Had it ever really been there? Had it been a dream? A hallucination brought on by too many nights spent under the stars? But as he looked down at the dog's body, the stargazer saw something that had not been there before. A small, silver pendant was now lying next to the dog. It was shaped like a star, with intricate markings that seemed to shift as if alive. The stargazer's heart skipped a beat. The pendant, it was the same symbol he had seen in his dreams for years, the same symbol that had haunted his thoughts since he was a young man. A star, surrounded by an ancient pattern of lines and curves. He picked it up, his hands trembling. "It's real," he whispered. "It's all real." And just like that, the dog's visit had changed everything. The stargazer no longer felt alone in the universe. For the first time in his life, he understood that the stars were not just distant points of light, they were a connection, a bridge between worlds. And somewhere out there, beyond the veil of the night sky, there were others. Other beings, like the dog, who watched over him, guiding him toward the truth of the cosmos. With a deep breath, the stargazer gazed out through his cabin's window, up at the stars that had always been his companions. But now, for the first time, he saw them not as distant pinpricks of light, but as a living, breathing part of the universe, a universe that was far more vast and wondrous than he had ever imagined. And as he stared at the stars, he knew that he was no longer alone. The universe was watching, and it had come to him in the form of a wounded dog.